Yes, indeed. This is Professor David Steinberg speaking with you today about the hyperinflation that has been unleashed by the easy money policies of the Obama administration and the Federal Reserve of Chairman Ben Bernanke. Today we saw gas prices in California hit all-time record highs. And yet we have the Obama administration and the Federal Reserve maintaining that there is no inflation to speak of. How can that be? Well, you have to first of all understand the way that inflation is calculated, the misleading way. The core consumer price index, or core CPI, excludes a number of items, particularly energy costs and food costs. Oh, that makes sense. Let's calculate inflation by excluding prices that go up. Wow, we're doing a great job fighting inflation. Now, to be honest, the core CPI is not an invention of President Obama or Chairman Bernanke. It has been calculated this way misleadingly for years. They have just misused it to a greater extent than prior administrations. So what really is the real rate of inflation when we start looking at prices that people actually pay? Well, see what CBS Money Watch, they're a big Tea Party sponsor. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. Let's see what CBS Money Watch has to say. They report on a study from the American Institute for Economic Research, which says everyday prices are up some 8% over the past year. Their measure for calculating inflation focuses on Americans' typical daily purchases such as food, gasoline, childcare, prescription drugs, phone and television service, and other household products. In other words, they measure the increase in costs of items that people actually buy. And their calculation is we have 8% inflation. 8% inflation. Let's look at another source. Sam Zell, who is probably the greatest real estate investor in the world. Brilliant real estate investor. Not a Tea Party activist, not a politician, a businessman. What does he think that inflation is? This, after all, is his job. It's very important as a real estate investor to understand the rate of inflation. He has to know this. That's how he has been so successful. Unlike the lamestream media who make their living reading press releases from the Obama administration. Says Zell, if you adjusted the CPI, the consumer price index, if you adjusted the CPI, meaning the consumer price index, to reality, you're probably looking at 5, 6, 7% inflation today. The reality out there is costs are going up. That is the real rate of inflation. That has occurred because of the policies of the Obama administration and the Federal Reserve under Ben Bernanke to print more and more and more money. The more dollars you print, the less it's worth and the more prices go up. Why would you do such a thing? Here's the reason, and please feel free to roll your eyes. The idea is to depreciate the dollar to such an extent that home prices go up, and that's how you solve the real estate crisis. I'm serious. That's really the plan. You're going to get people back to even on their houses because the dollars that are going to be used to purchase those houses aren't going to be worth anything. You'll get back to even on your $200,000 house, and you'll be paying $15 a gallon for gas. That's the plan. What this really amounts to, of course, is a massive increase, a massive inflation tax increase on the middle class. The things that you need to buy, particularly gas, and food are up tremendously in price during the Obama administration. And if you elect President Obama, that's the way they're going to keep going. Let's talk about this in terms of some numbers. 8% inflation. That means that what you bought, let's say you had $1,000. You have $1,000. And last year, you could buy $1,000 in goods. This year, you can only buy $920 in goods. Last year, you had $10,000 and you could buy $10,000 of whatever. This year, that $10,000 is only going to go to purchase $9,200 worth of goods. And as this inflation keeps rolling along, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. That is why you are paying so much for food. That is why you are paying so much for gas. That is why gold prices are at record high. It's not because these things necessarily cost more. It's because the federal government has made your dollar worthless. It's a massive tax on the middle class. President Obama, so concerned with the middle class, has imposed this massive inflation tax on the middle class with the help of his good friend, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke. That's what's going on here. This is Professor David Steinberg of the SteinbergFiles.com.